Day one of the 2017 NHL draft in the books here in Chicago. The Edmonton Oilers selecting Kailer Yamamoto, 22nd overall out of Spokane. Bob, 99 points last season. He's a small player, possibly the smallest guy ever drafted in the first round. I don't know if that's an official stat, but the Oilers like the way he plays the game.
Well, you know, you got the sense just over the course of the last 3 or 4 months that this was the name that was really gaining traction with the Edmonton Oilers. And I think that certainly when Keith Gretzky mentioned to us that, you know, we've got the size now, we need some more speed and skill coming. This guy's got the speed, he's got the skill, but he's also got the compete, and he's got a little bit of that attitude, and he exhibited that with some of his comments. So, frankly, I don't think any of us are really surprised that if he was there at 22, that was going to be the pick. And one of those cases for me where, you know, sometimes they talk about, well, we never thought we'd get this guy here. Yeah. I think Peter Chiarelli and Bob Green and Keith Gretzky were relieved that they ended up getting Yamamoto at 22. In fact, Peter even mentioned he was looking to maybe trade up at one point as well to grab him.
Jack, getting a chance to talk to him, what'd you make of the kid?
Well, he's slight with might, both on and off the ice. He's got a quiet confidence, as Bob alluded to. One of the things that struck Peter Chiarelli at this year's scouting combine was when he was asked the standard query, you know, why should we draft you? He said, because if you don't, I'm going to come back and haunt you. And on the ice, yeah, absolutely, and Chiarelli liked that. And you know, on the ice, he is known, you talk to the Spokane staff, he's known for playing big. He likes to attack the bigger players. He can turn on a dime. He's got tremendous hockey sense and IQ, which means he can play with skilled players down the road like McDavid and Draisaitl. And, you know, I talked with a scout that kind of covered the U.S. and Rocky Mountain region, and he said, look, I saw him before he played junior, and it wasn't even close. He was the best 1998 born player anywhere in that region. So look, if you're drafting later in the first round, nothing's a slam dunk. But I think Peter Chiarelli's rather bubbly comments after the draft tells me that that's the guy they wanted all along.
He learned how to skate. He's taught by Tyler Johnson's mom. You got Tyler Johnson. Even Derek Ryan, who took a longer time, was nominated for, you know, I was going to slide that in there. Nominated for the Masterton Trophy. But the point is there's 2 smaller players that had to will themselves to the NHL. Those guys have had to have an attitude to make it. You know, there's an old saying, big guys have to prove they can't play. Small guys have to prove they can. He's got the right attitude to do it. And I'll throw something else at you as well. There's a lot of focus on the Tri-Cities players. Bob Torrey, the GM from Edmonton. They had a couple guys go in the first round. Tri-Cities plays a little bit more open offensive style. Spokane under Don Knockbar, he ended up being stepping away from their program at the end of the year. He's now with the LA Kings. They were more defensive minded. And what did he say to us? I mean, he didn't dismiss.
No, he said, look, if I don't make the Edmonton Oilers, and he's not writing that off possibility, but a guy who scored 42 goals last year, tied for 8th in the league, he goes, my plan is to go win the goal-scoring title next year in the Western Hockey League. You take that kind of attitude on the ice, and it's no wonder why, again, the reports are this guy plays much bigger than his frame would suggest.
And they got a great young defenseman that's in next year's draft, Ty Smith, represented by Edmonton's Jerry Johansson, and he is a top 10 type of guy, a little bit smaller, a little bit like Cale Makar, and I think Spokane could be a very elite offensive team next season, but do not rule out the possibility that Yamamoto is going to push to get some games in the NHL at the start of the year.
A lot of comparisons to Gaudreau and Johnson, but he says he likes Matt Zuccarello, guys. Okay, quickly, finally, any surprises today? Because we knew this draft was kind of lots of question marks going into this draft. Anything that caught your guys' eye?
For me, Cale Makar working his way all the way up to number 4. And Gabe Vilardi working his way all the way outside the top 10. I had Makar kind of towards 8 or 9, and maybe Vilardi around 5 or 6, and they kind of flipped.
The Braden Shen deal to me was not a surprise. His name was out there. You know, St. Louis, they paid a bit of a price because they gave up a number 1 and a conditional number 1, and it was a salary dump on the part of Yori Laterra. But Braden Shen was available, and there were more than 1 or 2 teams in on him.
All right, we'll find out what day 2 has in store bright and early from here at the United Center. For Bob and Jack, Tom Zola signing off from Chicago.